Alright, this week I'm back from Austin, back from Classic Game Fest. That was awesome. Sold a couple more copies of the game. It demoed really well again. That's going to be the last big event I'm doing this summer. There are a couple other events coming up locally in the North Dallas area, but I don't want to burn myself out like I did last year doing too many events all several weekends back to back. And also I need to spend time doing some other stuff too. Probably later this year I will be doing Game Dallas and Retropalooza, so I don't remember exactly when those are. I think those are coming up maybe August and September, maybe October. I would need to check my calendar on those. Hopefully I can, get the usual sort of timeline of events over here in the video like I usually do. SGC and Classic Game Fest went really well. I was demoing Super Win again for those, but I was also trying to sort of pitch Gunmetal Arcadia when I had an opportunity, and it seemed like everyone who I talked to about it was really enthusiastic about the idea of sort of taking the combat platforming mechanics of games like Zelda 2 and Castlevania and turning that into a roguelike sort of game with random levels and permadeath. So it feels like that's a strong promise, which is good to hear because I've been sort of banking on that from the very beginning. Yeah, so that went really well. I did have a few people ask me about like a release date for Gunmetal, or what, a time frame when that would be out. And I don't really have one right now, but between that and I've been watching a whole lot of the Double Fine Adventure documentary this week, and I think that sort of had me like putting on my producer hat and start thinking about like scheduling and maybe actually try to figure out like when is this game going to be done. I guess I talked about this in a blog post a couple weeks back, the one about Crunch, but going back to, I guess, the end of March or start of April, I really haven't been doing like full-time production on Gunmetal Arcadia. I took a break in early April to go back to Super Win the game, add the speedrun challenges and the mini-map and all that stuff. And that took I think that was about 2 months. Maybe a little longer because like after I shipped those changes, there were a few bugs that popped up, so I had to spend some time addressing those. And then I guess right around that same time, I was also starting to take on contract work. So even once I went back from Super Win the game to Gunmetal Arcadia, it still wasn't the sort of full-time production that I had been doing. And then, of course, I've been spending time planning for events, and some of that did overlap with development of the game, as far as, getting an intro in there that I could use for the teaser trailer, but that's also something that I can ship the game with, so that does add some value there. But yeah, it's been, at this point, it's been several months since I've really just been able to, like, sit down and work on Gunmetal Arcadia full-time, and, so at some point I probably need to figure out like what's my schedule going to look like in the future and what does that mean for like a release date. I'm still doing contract work and I'm going to continue doing that for some time into the future. Then coming up later this year, my wife and I are expecting our first child in November, so obviously there's going to be some major time commitments involved in that. So it's difficult to say when or if I would be able to go back to the sort of like full-time 5 days a week full-time production that I had been doing for the first couple of months of development on Gunmetal Arcadia. And maybe I need to find a schedule that's reasonable, where I'm only working a few days a week. Like right now I'm doing contract work 3 days a week, so that leaves 2 work days plus evenings and weekends. I have to spend that time developing the game, but also writing blog posts, recording and editing these videos, which that can take anywhere from a few hours to a full day, depending on how elaborate I get with footage of this game or other games. And then it does take me some time to prepare the weekly builds on all platforms and get those uploaded and get all the blog posts and tweets and everything scheduled. So there's a fair amount of time spent doing that, and of course I want to spend some of my time not working. So yeah, I was looking at, I think I'm spending about like 10% of my work week actually developing Gunmetal Arcadia, which is probably not ideal and probably not really feasible if I want to ship this game anytime in the next decade. So, you know, I'm not exactly sure what that means for the schedule yet. Does it mean that I need to reduce the scope of the game? Do I need to cut features? Do I need to spend less time doing blogs and videos? And that's probably where I'm going to end up making cuts, is maybe I scale back these videos and only do these, you know, every 2 weeks or once a month. And that might make more sense too, because I've been feeling like the amount of work that I'm doing every week on the game isn't really enough to warrant a new video every week. I'm not really showing like cool new gameplay stuff, which was sort of the promise of these videos, was like, hey, let's take a format that's really conducive to showing off the game and, you know, document the development that way. And I don't, with a few exceptions, I don't feel like I'm nailing that every single week. So yeah, maybe I scale back these videos and only do those once a month. Maybe at some point, if I keep talking about the idea of maybe launching a Patreon campaign, so maybe I could, you know, have the focus of the Patreon campaign could maybe be to, you know, allow me to spend more time doing this sort of stuff. That's still way off in the future. I don't know when that would happen, but it's an idea. So yeah, there are definitely there are things that I can cut, ways that I can scale back production, and still hopefully, you know, I can't imagine the game will not be done sometime next year. Way back last October, when, you know, it was a few days before Super when the game launched, that I started maintaining my development blog, and I already knew I had a general idea of what Gunmetal Arcadia was, and that I wanted to document the process every week. And at the time, I think I was hoping that it could be done by the end of 2015, but you know, that was before I took the time to make changes, make updates to Super Win. That was before some of this other stuff had happened, and I was only writing, you know, one blog a week. I wasn't doing videos. I wasn't publishing weekly builds. So the scope of some of that extra work was smaller. As some of that stuff has grown and changed, I can't imagine the game would be done by the end of this year. So I've been saying sometime in 2016. When in 2016, who knows? And that's sort of what I need to figure out. I need to look at my schedule, see what makes sense, see what's feasible, and yeah, then report back once that's done. I have been thinking about like alternative sources of funding. I've mentioned the idea of a Patreon campaign a few times, and of course Kickstarter has always been something that's kind of out there on the horizon that maybe I do, maybe I don't. I've avoided Kickstarter for a number of reasons. Like I've backed lots of projects. I love Kickstarter as a backer. I've been hesitant to throw my own hat into the ring as far as trying to get a game funded that way, just because I don't have any experience, you know, running that sort of a crowdfunding campaign, and I have some concerns about whether I would be able to run a successful campaign. And then if I don't, well, I've probably invested a lot of time and effort into trying to run a campaign, and now it's gone nowhere, and I don't want to lose that time, I don't want to lose that money. So I've avoided it. But at the same time, I do think that there could be some benefits there, and I think that if I found myself in a position where the game already had enough interest at the time to warrant doing a Kickstarter campaign, and that if that could sort of feed into awareness of the game, and then awareness of the game could also feed back into, you know, Kickstarter crowdfunding pledges, maybe those things could all sort of as a whole amplify each other. When I was at these events the last couple of weeks, the thing that kept I kept coming back to was like the USB gamepad. So when we did the IndieBox bundle earlier this year, they had some leftover gamepads. So I've been selling those at events, and those really seem to like spark people's interest. And I was selling, you know, the game and controller as a bundle for a slight discount, and those sold really well. So I was thinking, like, is there anything else that I could do where I could sort of include some cool bonuses to sort of incentivize people either to buy the game just when it launches at some point in the future, or as incentives for a Kickstarter or a Patreon campaign or anything like that. And of course, anything that I did in that vein would have some upfront costs, whether, you know, it's like production of whatever, you know, stickers, buttons, flyers, boxes, anything. There would be some upfront costs there, but I do also think that sometimes that's probably worth it. I mean, look how many successful Kickstarters have had really elaborate, like, box productions, like, and I would love to have, you know, boxed copies of all my games, and that's, you know, that's that's why the IndieBox thing was so cool when it happened. But yeah, it's just sort of some ideas that have been pinging around my head recently as I've had some time, I guess, away from development to sort of think about like positioning and stuff. Figuring out what this game is going to be, how it's going to be successful, because it has to be. As always, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe. You can leave comments and questions below the video. You can also reach me on Twitter or on ask.fm. My username is Pirate Hearts on both those. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.